Y'all see them lips? You cannot tell me that this isn't like a years later affected man. Hey guys, me myself and Nekwana. Today I'm reacting to a Resident Evil 9 Requiem Trailer Explained plus Theories. Okay, so I don't want to say I'm a massive Resident Evil fan, but I am. I haven't even played half the games. I've only played Resident Evil 2, the remake, Resident Evil 7, Biohazard, Resident Evil 8, Village, and Resident Evil 4, the remake. Yeah. So there's obviously a lot that like I need to catch up on. I'm gonna play all of them though before Resident Evil 9 comes out, and I can't wait. But I'm definitely really looking forward to Resident Evil 9. I think that this is my most anticipated game of 2026. It's probably a bold statement, you know, because like GTA 6, which is a Juggernaut, is coming out next year. I know, but I don't know. I think I can confidently say that I'm looking forward to this more than GTA 6. I think the order is Resident Evil 9, then GTA 6, then any other. Maybe if The Witcher 4 comes out next year, I don't know, but or Intergalactic, I doubt it though. Those seem like 2027 games, but yeah, let's just go ahead and react to this.
We finally got a reveal trailer for the long-anticipated Resident Evil 9. Now,
Yes.
Not only is this very exciting, it seems like Resident Evil is finally going back to its horror roots, but the trailer contains some very big clues to the plot of the game and potentially the future of the series. Hello lore fans, my name is Teruko, and after watching that Resident Evil 9 trailer, I am very excited to play it. Now the trailer gives us quite a
I
lot,
don't think
but
I
we
could
are
ever
left
do
with
like
some
a
pretty
very
big
long
questions.
beard. He's rocking it though. He is. He's rocking it. I don't think I can ever do that in my life. I don't want like facial hair in general, but I'm okay with like a little, you know, like just a little. I need to get shaved soon, but he's rocking it.
Who is Grace? Why are we going back to Raccoon City after all of these years? And who is this mystery hooded man?
Oh,
Well,
I
think
can't
the
wait.
trailer gives us some pretty big clues to all
I
of these
can't wait.
questions and more. And I might just have a good theory on who this mystery man could be. Let's get into it.
I thought it
Now,
was
before
Jack
we
the
get
first
into
time I
the
saw him.
breakdown of the trailer, the name of this game already gives us some clues. Resident Evil 9 is called Requiem. This continues the tradition started by Resident Evil 7 of using the number in the name. Requiem now using the Q as a 9 was quite clever. I bet you Resident Evil 10 is going to be called Double Helix. But this name also has a clever little meaning. The word Requiem comes from a Roman Catholic ceremony to honor the dead, a Mass of the dead. The phrase Requiem aeternam dona eis domine, I don't speak Latin, so I'm sorry if I got that wrong, translates to grant them eternal rest, Lord. Now, as we'll come on to later, this ties into the theme of the game quite well. The main character Grace lost her mother, but the game also returns to the iconic Raccoon City, a very important location in the series, but also a literal city of the dead, both during the outbreak being full of the living dead, and now being completely dead after being bombed at the end of Resident Evil 3. Either way, a lot of people died.
Okay, so like, this not a spoiler because I knew this happens. So there's some things I know about the story of Raccoon City. You know, like I know in Resident Evil 6, I think Ada's a clone or something like that. I think. I could be dead wrong about that. I could have sworn I saw something about that like a while ago. This was, I think, even before COVID, so it's been a minute. But yeah, I knew that Raccoon City got bombed. Yeah.
Here, and it seems like those deaths haven't stopped all those years later. Now, the trailer begins outside of a Federal Bureau of Investigation building. Now, I don't think this is a real FBI site. Many Resident Evil games have made up areas that are loosely based on real-world locations. The original Raccoon City was a fictional place, and Resident Evil 4 was set somewhere in Europe, just as two examples. But keep this in mind for later, because I actually think there is a clue here that might just confirm some old fan theories.
Mhm.
Once inside, we see Nathan Dempsey, special agent in charge, walk through the busy offices. Now it makes sense that the FBI in the Resident Evil world would be constantly swamped. Every 5 minutes there's a new outbreak or bioterrorism threat. Of course, the offices just had to have the iconic green herb, something that fans of the game should be very familiar with by now. Before we meet our new protagonist, we get a glimpse of the case she's working on. This one shows a victim of an unidentified disease which seems to be linked to a number of disappearances. Knowing Resident Evil, there is likely more to this story. This man was likely put through some sort of experimentation, or possibly the victim of a bioweapon. Fun fact, the case ID matches a real FBI case. That one was for a counter-terrorism case in 2001.
Oh.
This is most likely just a coincidence, but the major theme of the game since Resident Evil 3 is the fight against bioweapon terrorism. The FBI in the Resident Evil world are likely heavily involved in this fight, so this is a cool little coincidence. We then get to meet presumably this game's protagonist, Grace Ashcroft. If that name seemed familiar to you,
It
she's
doesn't.
actually the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft. Alyssa was a journalist and one of the playable characters who survived Raccoon City in Resident Evil Outbreak. Outbreak is one of the less well-known Resident Evil games as it released for the PS2 in Japan in 2003 and the rest of the world in 2004.
Can't lie, this is the first time of me hearing about this. I know that there's more Resident Evil games outside of the the numbered ones, right? It's like the original. I don't know the order. It's Code Veronica, Resident Evil 0, and then this. And I think that's all of them. I think. I don't know.
This game was actually built with co-op in mind, designed to be played online with players working together to survive several locations across Raccoon City and
That'd be
beyond.
fire.
However, this was far before online gaming was common, and most people ended up playing Outbreak solo. While it was definitely playable, the AI were questionable on how helpful they would be at times. This led to Outbreak being a particularly challenging game in a genre that was already known for being fairly difficult. Despite all of that, I really liked the games, and they added a lot more lore and backstory to the world of Resident Evil. One such backstory is how Alyssa actually witnessed Umbrella's experiments before the Raccoon City outbreak of 1998. Alyssa's fellow journalist and friend Kurt had suspicions that a hospital just outside Raccoon City limits was testing experimental drugs on their patients. Patients were frequently dying after visiting, and a shady company was supplying drugs to the hospital. Kurt reported this to the Raccoon City Police Department, but was frustrated after they failed to take any action. Now, of course, we know that the reason why is that the RPD was being run by the corrupt chief of police, Brian Irons.
Oh.
Not only was Irons taking bribes from Umbrella, but he had his own shady past
He
as
just
well.
casually
This
sitting there.
wasn't the only thing that Brian Irons turned a blind eye to,
Who
as
is
Umbrella
one?
had multiple projects spread across the city. Alyssa and Kurt decided to investigate the hospital themselves. While there, Kurt was attacked by Dorothy Lester. Dorothy was dying of cancer. Her husband Al had agreed to put her into an experimental trial. However, this trial was actually an experiment with a strain of the T-virus, the same virus that was unleashed on Raccoon City across Resident Evil 1 to 3. Now, this particular strain of the T-virus was designed to target cancer cells, and at first, it did work. After treatment, Dorothy appeared healthy again. However, it wasn't long before the virus started to mutate her, and she started to zombify. Kurt was infected and partially eaten, turning into a zombie himself. Alyssa survived this incident, although the Umbrella researcher in charge of the hospital carried out a procedure to wipe her memories of the event. This is likely why she experienced headaches years later. Alyssa did regain her memories in Outbreak File 2, and after surviving the Raccoon City outbreak, she tried to use her journalism career to expose Umbrella and their bioweapon research. Now, we also got a small nod to Alyssa in Resident Evil 7. Ethan can find a newspaper article written by her that talks about a series of missing people in Louisiana, the
Oh.
state where the Baker House was located.
When I say I love tie-ins, I love a good tie-in, my goodness. And also, I just love Resident Evil 7 in general. I think it's my favorite. But it's hard. It's between this and Resident Evil 2. I love Resident Evil 4, the remake also. I love that game. But I don't think it's my like favorite. I think cuz Resident Evil 7 is the second Resident Evil game I played. First one was Resident Evil 2, the remake. I had fun with that one. And then Resident Evil 7 was first person. It's like It's between those two. But if I had to like say, I don't know. That's hard. But I think I would, as of now, I would probably say I'll probably say 7, only because I think the area, the environment, it was just creepy. And yeah,
It makes sense
yeah.
that Alyssa would have a personal stake in such cases. Many of the Raccoon City survivors ended up fighting against bioterrorism in one way or another, but we
hmm
now know that unfortunately, this investigation led to her death. We learned from Nathan that Alyssa was murdered in the Renwood Hotel. This is likely going to be
Oh,
one of the main locations of Resident Evil 9, and it definitely has a Spencer Mansion vibe to it.
I
Now
hope,
Nathan tells Grace that another
I hope
body
Grace
has
doesn't have to
turned
fight
up.
her
He
mother.
mentions the word pathology, meaning that this victim
Maybe like her mother is like still there. She's not alive, but she's like, like still around, if that makes sense. Like, not human. I'm just gonna say that. Like, that'd be crazy. That would be crazy. And I wouldn't be shocked if they do that, honestly.
was infected with something just like the ones Grace has been investigating. Now it's clear that Grace still holds some trauma from her mother's murder. In fact, we can see by looking at her desk that she's clearly taking on far more cases than you would expect. She also eats takeout at her desk, showing how she's thrown herself into her work. This is likely a personal vendetta for her, and it
And that's
makes me
not,
wonder how much Alyssa told her
I mean,
daughter
oh, I
before
mean,
she died.
I thought that'd been
Is this
common.
drive an attempt
It's
to
like a
stop
good time eating
bioterrorism,
takeout
knowing
at
how
work.
powerful Umbrella were before Raccoon City, or is it an attempt to avenge her mother's murder? Maybe a little bit of both. Also to note here, Grace wears a wristwatch very similar to her mother, maybe a trait passed down from mother to daughter, or perhaps this was even her mother's watch that Grace keeps to remember her by. Also, keep this watch in mind because this might actually be a massive clue to the mystery hooded man that we see later.
Don't
In
tell
one
me
of
it's
the
the
most
father.
exciting reveals in the trailer, we get to see the ruins of Raccoon City. This is the first time we have properly seen it after the original trilogy, and this is what is left of it after it was bombed at the end of Resident Evil 3. The US military, in an attempt to contain the outbreak, dropped bombs right in the center of the city. Now, depending on which version you watch, it's ambiguous as to how much of the city was actually destroyed. The original RE3 and its remake implied that the entire city was flattened, but now we see that there are still a fair few buildings left standing. Even the RPD is still recognizable, although not in a great shape. In fact, we can see the bus that Leon or Claire had to fight
Now
through
Leon
in
being
Resident
kicked
Evil
up.
2 still outside the RPD gates. Now, while this implies that there were very few, if any, human survivors, this might be
How much I wanna bet? The last location is gonna be in this game is gonna be like the police station. How much I wanna bet? Like how much I wanna bet for real? Cause ain't no way like they showed it in a trailer, and we not gonna go there at some point. I know it's like halfway destroyed, but it definitely gives like, oh, like destroyed kind of like final boss area, like running around a half destroyed police station. I can see it.
hinting that some bioweapons or infected humans could have survived. In fact, I think the trailer is hinting at exactly that. We see a monster later on in the trailer that far more resembles a T or a G virus monster. Later Resident Evil games show much more elaborate monsters. They often retain some form of their intelligence. Even the villagers in Resident Evil 4 can still talk. The majority of those infected with the T or G virus, though, become much more animalistic. The zombies in Raccoon City are much more beast-like compared to those infected with the last plaguers in Resident Evil 4. Now personally,
hated
I
them.
like the older infected much more. I find them to be a lot scarier and more threatening to face. Now this monster looks just like something out of Raccoon City. Its face especially reminds me of the zombies in the original games. Now some people have speculated that we might see Lisa Trevor again. Lisa was a new character added for the RE1 remake, and she's a fan favorite character. Her whereabouts are also unknown. She was last seen in the Spencer Mansion, which is just outside of Raccoon City. Owing to the fact that we can hear chains in the background and Lisa was known to have been shackled, people have speculated that this could be Lisa. Now, as I
That'd
said
be
earlier,
crazy.
this trailer might just have confirmed an old fan theory of the series. As I said, it looks like we will finally be revisiting Raccoon City after its destruction. but we've never actually had a concrete answer on where Raccoon City is. The games often hint that it's a Midwestern city, but it's never given a proper location, not even which state it's in. Now, there have been many fan theories over the years. Obviously, Raccoon City isn't real, but people have speculated that it could be based on real places. Now, people have guessed cities all over America, but one of the most popular fan theories is that Raccoon City is based on Springfield, Missouri, mostly due to the shape of the two cities, and Springfield
Oh my gosh. Raccoon City is close to me. I stay in like Illinois, by the way. So yeah, kind of close. Just a
having
little bit.
areas to its north that could resemble the Arklay Mountains. But here is where things get very interesting. We see a map at Grace's desk that shows a city with a river running through it. Now, that could be any number of US cities, but St. Louis in Missouri looks like it could be a match. But if Raccoon City is indeed inspired by Springfield, Missouri, then it could make sense that many of those who were evacuated, or in Alyssa's case escaped the city, might just have migrated and settled into one of the two big nearby cities. Perhaps this man is just one more of those Raccoon City survivors, and now people have started going missing in the areas surrounding the ruins of Raccoon City. But if you aren't convinced, we know that the hotel that Alyssa was murdered in was called the Wrenwood Hotel. Now, there are quite a few places in the US with the name Wrenwood, but there are no fewer than 4 in St. Louis. There is even a street named Wrenwood right outside of Springfield, Missouri. Again, if Raccoon City was based on Springfield, then this Wrenwood Hotel might be just outside of that ruined city. That could explain why it looks so run down. Now finally, I took a closer look at the FBI building we saw at the start of the trailer and compared it to all of the real-world ones. Now, none of them are a match, but the closest one is absolutely St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh my
These
goodness.
two-tone glass panels look very similar to this real-world FBI building, so I'm guessing that this one is based in Missouri. But
Yeah,
this
I can
actually
s-
starts to
I
paint
can
a
see it.
geographical picture. If Raccoon City was indeed in Missouri, you can see how the effects of Raccoon City might have spread out across the neighboring areas, kind of like a virus. Later on, we see Grace wake up strapped upside down to a table. A nice little touch here is that she has blue eyes just like her mother, but the most interesting part is that it seems like someone is taking her blood. Now, why are they taking her blood? Now, this is completely theory territory, but I think I have a good explanation.
Okay,
In
let's hear
Resident
it.
Evil Outbreak, all of the surviving characters were infected. This was actually a key mechanic of the games, acting like a timer. The longer you spent in each mission, the more likely you were to succumb to the virus, and this only sped up each time you took damage from enemies. Now, the Outbreak games have multiple endings, but since we know that Alyssa did survive, that means she would have had her virus treated. We know that several cures exist for many of the older viruses in the games, so logically, Alyssa would have had treatment for her infection. However, we know that the viruses created by Umbrella are incredibly stubborn.
I forgot
It's
his
very
name. I
likely
forgot
that
it.
some of that T-virus still remained in Alyssa, and there is a good chance that it was passed down onto her daughter. Now, I actually think this could explain everything we've seen in the trailer. This man seems to be carrying out experiments on his victims. They're all found dead, but they all seem infected with something. Now, we know we're going back to Raccoon City, but why? Why would we visit the ruins of this city? Well, it's possible that this man was looking for samples of the T-virus, and since plenty of these buildings are still standing, well, perhaps there are still ways to find it. Remember, a lot of these monsters created by the T and G viruses can take a lot of punishment. There's a good chance that this man was looking for samples of the virus in the city, but after failing to find what he needed, he realized he could find those samples in the living people who had been cured. That could explain why he calls Grace
Special one. The chosen one. Miss Ashcroft.
Grace carrying traces of the T-virus unknowingly passed down by her mother. This could even explain why her mother was killed in the first place, this man trying to get that sample from her blood. Now, this could also explain why Grace has these intense flashbacks and what seem like memories of her mother's perspective. It might not just be trauma, it could be her body fighting against the virus inside her. Now, this brings me on to the biggest question of the trailer. Who exactly is this mysterious hooded figure? Well, he could be a surviving member of Raccoon City, possibly even a surviving member of Umbrella. But I think I have a very good theory on who he could be, and no, let's get this out of the way,
It's not
he's
Leon.
not Albert Wesker.
Oh.
Not only does he not have Wesker's blonde hair or accent, but he also doesn't act like Wesker at all. This guy hides in the shadows, whereas Wesker is all about theatrics. Plus, Wesker was incredibly powerful before he died in RE5, he wouldn't be grappling with a human like this. No, in fact, I think there is a really cool candidate that would be an awesome twist. RE9 is clearly tied into Outbreak. We are playing as the daughter of one of the playable characters of those games, and it's clear we're going to be revisiting the past in Raccoon City. Well, what if this mystery man is also a survivor of Raccoon City, but also someone that Grace's mother knew? Of all the playable characters in Outbreak, there is one that could absolutely match this character, George Hamilton. George was a doctor who worked in Raccoon
Oh my
City
gosh,
during
that's
the
similar
outbreak,
too. Oh my
but if you
goodness.
compare these two characters, they have a lot in common. This man clearly has some medical training. We can see that from the medical procedure he's carrying out on Grace. He's also very well spoken and looks like he comes from wealth. George, being a
looked kinda messed
doctor,
up,
was
though.
very well dressed and well spoken. He also had money. But most interestingly of all,
It's them
he
lips.
collects watches.
It's
That
them
might just have been a
lips.
small hint there all the way back at the start of the trailer. I wonder if George might have kept Alyssa's watch after he killed her. But one more clue, in the game, George can unlock an outfit called Outdoor Expert.
Oh
The
my
color is
goodness.
different, but this does look just like what this man is wearing. George was known to enjoy camping and hiking, and one of his special abilities in the game was to tackle zombies.
Y'all, he cracked it. He did. I'm truly going to go into Resident Evil 9. Because keep in mind, I'm going to play all the other ones beforehand. If I can. Because I don't know if... I know like all the popular ones you can play. Like on Steam or whatever. I don't know if you can play every last Resident Evil game. Let's say like Outbreak, for example. Let's say if I can't play that. I'll just watch someone play, honestly. And I'll just count that as me experiencing it. But I'm gonna experience / play each one before Resident Evil 9. And if it's that character, he cracked it. He did.
So clearly he would
And
be
honestly,
able to do what we
I'm
see
see
the
that
man
for
do
the
in the
theory.
trailer. George was infected just like Alyssa, so that could explain why he looks the way that he does.
And that would
Maybe.
that'd be a dark theory. Like a dark twist, I mean. It reminds me of like the Scream movies. The Scream movies, you know? Like you wouldn't expect a certain character to be the killer, right? And it's like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, like who'd have thought? And obviously, Grace, she wouldn't know who this is, but the visions that, let's say, she sees through like her mother's eyes, whatever, she'll probably be like, wait, like you look kind of familiar, you know, like I'm seeing it.
He got the cure later than Alyssa did, the T-virus doing more damage to him in that time. Now he also has a good potential for a villain story. He was overworked and stressed in Raccoon City due to his job as a doctor, but also from his wife divorcing him. He's believed to romanticize his own profession, and he learned of a cure to the T-virus known as Daylight. I wonder if this is George, after years
I have
of
a phobia with
infection and
rats,
his
by the
own
way.
mental state eroding, trying to develop his own cure. He did, after all, specialize in virology.
Wait,
Trying to develop his own cure.
y'all see them lips? You cannot tell me that this isn't like a years later affected man. And obviously it's gonna look different because obviously, you know, the game gonna look way better. But look at it. That's him. I'm sorry, that is him. If that wasn't him, I think they would show his face. He's hooded because there is. But the thing is, though, the average Resident Evil, the average Resident Evil fan, would they know? Like, you know, like let's say if he takes the hood off, would they be like, oh, it's that character? I already forgot his name. I already forgot my man's name. But would they? Unless you are like a massive Resident Evil fan, I think a good twist if it was like Carlos or something, right? Because he kind of, I think he's more known than this character. That'd be an interesting twist. I think I'm like 90% actually in this theory. Yeah.
He did, after all, specialize.
Because I have a feeling the reveal is going to be a character we know. Right? Because I'm sure not every Resident Evil who, every person who loves Resident Evil games, I'm sure they all I'm sure they forgot his character, unless he was like the one of the main characters in a game. Then obviously I'm speaking out my ass, but I don't know. I think that's the one thing I'm like, oh, I don't know. Actually, it's like, is he popular enough to get recognized? Like, is he? I don't know.
In virology. Now, one final thing that could make this more likely is the relationship system in RE Outbreak. Different characters have different relationships with the others. Some get along more than others do. But there were two characters that George didn't get along with: Yoko Suzuki and, you guessed it, Alyssa Ashcroft. If George has spent all these years suffering with his own mental health on top of living with the effects of the T-virus, then I could absolutely see him turning villain. Perhaps he believes he's the only person who can replicate the T-virus cure. Perhaps he's even trying to reverse the damage done to himself, now so desperate that he's willing to kill others to do so.
That'd be so
Now,
crazy.
I also think that Resident Evil 9 is being set up to bridge the gap between the last few games.
Oh, okay.
Now, I
Hang
also
on.
think that Resident Evil 9 is being set up.
This character right here, I'm sure it's a woman. I think this is Alyssa. I don't know. For some odd reason, this is what I think. I think this is Alyssa. This is Grace's mother. I just have a feeling. I don't know. Especially if this gonna be on the case. My goodness, I think that's just obvious.
To bridge the gap between the last few games and the older ones. Resident Evil has this weird tradition where every 3 games the series completely changes. The first 3 games were all set in Raccoon City, revolved around the T and G viruses, with 3 ending with Raccoon City's destruction. 4, 5, and 6 all followed the Raccoon City survivors as they each battled remnants of Umbrella across the globe and also uncovered more of the origins of the company and its research, this time fighting against more parasitical enemies with the Las Plagas and the Ouroboros.
I gotta play
Now,
all
7
of them.
and
I
8
can't
have
wait.
followed almost a completely separate story. The last 2 games focused on the Winters family and their relationship with the mold. But Resident Evil 9 is clearly bringing the games full circle. We're going back to Raccoon City, but we are also going back to characters that were established in the first story arc. This makes me believe that Resident Evil 9 will set up the series to return to the main characters. If we get a Resident Evil 10, then that should be the start of a new story arc.
I'm sure it
and seeing
will.
just how well received the Resident Evil remakes have been in recent years, I bet Capcom are going to use 9 to set up the return of the fan favorite characters. After all, I don't care what anyone else says, it's been far too long since Jill's had her own game. Now, I know that people want to see what is happening with Leon, Claire, Chris, and the rest of the gang, and I think Resident Evil 10 will be the one to finally bring them back. Now, some people have speculated
that makes
we can
sense.
hear Chris or Leon in the trailer, but I don't think so. This person seems to react in shock to whatever infected it is that they encounter.
We need to keep our voices down.
Have you seen the same shit I've seen?
I don't think either Chris or Leon by this point would talk like this. They have both fought against so many monsters by now, so I think this is a new character. But that doesn't mean we won't see one of these characters. There's still room for a twist, and I'm sure if we were going to see one of these characters, that they wouldn't throw it in the trailer like they did for Resident Evil Village. Either way, this trailer has so many cool little details that it has
That
me
is true.
so excited for Resident Evil again. I really hope this one puts horror back into focus, and I will 100% be playing it over on the second channel, and hopefully making some content on this one too. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to leave it a like, subscribe if you want more horror secrets and lore videos like
Yes. So, I agree. I think he cracked it, though. I think I agree with everything he said, honestly. Especially the theory about it being, what's his name, George? I don't know. I'm kind of bad with names, not gonna lie. But, yeah. The guy from Outbreak. I think that's him. Or... Okay. So, yeah, there's 2 sides to that theory, I think. It's like, I agree with it, and that would make so much sense. But, a lot of people gonna be, let's say the average Resident Evil player, they're gonna be playing it. And then, let's say the hooded guy gonna take off his hood, and, unless it's built up to it, but, like, they're gonna be like, who is this? Like, who is this man? You know? So that's why I'm like, It might be like someone like Carlos. I think that'd be interesting. Or maybe someone from like, not doubt it'd be like Jack or something. I doubt it. Maybe like, I mean, um, the mastermind. I mean, hey, maybe like he doesn't have his powers no more. He's affected, but he doesn't have his powers no more. That'd be interesting. But I don't know. I have to watch more theory videos because I'm see that. But this theory, I give it a 9 out of 10. The only reason it's not a 10 out of 10 is because of that one element of it's like the reveal being kind of like, like, who's this man? If you didn't play Outbreak, I don't know if he's in any other Resident Evil game, but that's the only issue I have with that theory. Let's say if I don't watch this and I just play Resident Evil 9, I'll be like, who was that? Even if I did play Outbreak, I'm like, who is this? Like, who is this man? But yeah, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Stay safe and want to be a good person, and down below, leave your theories if you have any theories or theories that you saw. Down below, I love I want to debate. I just say that I love a good debate. Just sharing theories with each other. That sounds like a fun time. But yeah, stay safe and want to be a good person, and that's about it with today's video. Peace.